Here's a question I want you to sit with for a moment. You've probably heard people say, the first $100,000 is the hardest. Maybe you nodded. Maybe you rolled your eyes. Maybe you thought, cool, I'm 26, I make $43,000 a year after student loans and a car payment, and someone on the internet is telling me to save 100 grand. Thanks, very helpful. And honestly, I get it. Because that phrase, the first 100,000 is the hardest, is one of those things that sounds wise when someone rich says it, and sounds completely disconnected from reality when you're sitting in your apartment in Columbus, Ohio, or Leeds, England, trying to figure out if you can afford to go to your friend's birthday dinner on Friday. So today, I don't want to motivate you. I don't want to give you a list of tips. I want to actually explain the mechanics of why this is true, and more importantly, why so many people spend years working hard and still never get there. Because it's not about discipline, it's not about avocado toast, and it really isn't about working harder. It's about something much quieter than that. Let's talk about it. Let me introduce you to Marcus. Marcus is 24 years old. He just finished his degree in business administration from a mid-tier state university in the Midwest. He's not lazy. He studied. He interned. He did everything the system told him to do. He just landed his first real job, a junior analyst role at a financial services firm in Chicago. The offer letter says $52,000 a year. He calls his mom. She cries a little. His dad says, "See? Hard work pays off." Marcus is genuinely proud. He opens a spreadsheet that weekend, because he's a business grad after all, and he starts doing the math. $52,000 a year, divide by 12, that's roughly $4,333 a month. He thinks, okay, I can work with this. But here's the first thing the offer letter doesn't explain. And this is where the story actually begins. Because $52,000 in Illinois doesn't land in your bank account as $4,333 a month. After federal income tax, state income tax, Social Security, and Medicare, what Marcus actually takes home is closer to $3,400 a month, maybe $3,450 if he's lucky with his withholdings. That's nearly $900 a month gone before he buys a single thing, before rent, before food, before anything. Marcus knew taxes existed, of course, but there's a psychological gap between knowing taxes exist and feeling $900 disappear every single month. That gap, that surprise, is the first crack in the foundation. He brushes it off. Okay, $3,420, still manageable. He finds an apartment. He doesn't go crazy, he's responsible. He finds a one-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, not downtown, not luxury, $1,350 a month, which, if you've looked at Chicago rents recently, is actually quite modest. $2,070 left. He still has his student loans. He borrowed $34,000 over 4 years. His monthly payment on the standard 10-year repayment plan is $347, $1,723 left. He needs a car. Chicago has public transit, but his office is slightly outside the main lines, and he needs something reliable. He doesn't buy new, he's smart about it. He finds a 3-year-old Honda Civic, finances it over 5 years. Monthly payment, $310. Insurance in Illinois, around $140 a month. $1,273 for everything else in his life. Groceries, phone bill, internet, electricity, gym membership, a haircut, clothes for work, a birthday gift for someone, coffee, the occasional dinner out, doctor's visit copay, streaming services, because at this point in the 21st century, those are basically utilities. We're already in a world where Marcus is not being irresponsible. He hasn't taken a vacation. He hasn't bought designer clothes. He hasn't gone out every weekend. He is doing the sensible thing, and he has $1,273 a month to live his entire life on. And this, right here, is where most financial content skips to the part where they say, just cut your spending. But I want to stay here a little longer. Because the real problem isn't what Marcus is spending. The real problem is what the structure of his life is doing to his ability to save, quietly, without anyone pointing it out.
Let's follow Marcus into month 3. He's settled in, he knows his routine. On paper, he tells himself he should be saving around $400 to $500 a month from that $1,273. He's made a mental note of it. He intends to. But something keeps happening. In month 1, his laptop charger breaks, $80. In month 2, his company has a team happy hour. He goes because he's new and he's not going to be the person who doesn't show up to the team happy hour. 4 rounds of drinks in a Chicago bar. His share, $60. In month 3, his college roommate gets engaged and expects Marcus at the bachelor trip to Nashville. Just the flights and the hotel, $380. None of these are stupid decisions. None of these are avocado toast moments. These are just the normal human social costs of being a 24-year-old alive in the world. And yet, at the end of month 3, Marcus has saved $190, not $500. $190. He tells himself he'll do better next month. Next month is a 3-paycheck month, so it'll be easier. He'll catch up. But here's what behavioral economists call present bias. The tendency to value what's happening right now, this dinner, this trip, this social moment, far more than a vague, distant future reward that's completely abstract, a number in a savings account that doesn't feel like anything yet. $190 in a savings account doesn't feel like progress. It doesn't feel like safety. It doesn't feel like freedom. It just feels like a small number sitting in a digital box while life is happening all around you. And so the saving doesn't feel urgent. It feels like something for later, for when things are more settled, for when I get my next raise, for when I'm not so busy. And Marcus is not weak. Marcus is not foolish. Marcus is experiencing exactly what most people in their mid-20s experience, which is that the math of entry-level adult life in a major city is genuinely, structurally tight. There's also something else happening that nobody talks about. Marcus graduated with classmates. Let's step back from Marcus for a moment and just look at the math, because I think this is where a lot of people give up, not because they're bad with money, but because they've never actually seen the numbers laid out honestly. If Marcus manages to save $300 a month consistently, and that's an optimistic number given what we just looked at, how long does it take him to reach $100,000? $300 a month, no investment returns, just saving, 27.7 years. That's not a typo. At $300, Marcus is 52 years old before he sees $100,000 in savings, if he started at 24. Now, let's say he pushes it to $500 a month, which, looking at his budget, is painful but possible if he's disciplined and lucky enough to avoid major unexpected costs. $500 a month, 16.6 years. He's 40 years old. What if, and this is where saving actually starts to interact with investing, he puts that $500 a month into an index fund with a conservative 7% annual return? $500 a month at 7% annual return reaches $100,000 in roughly 10.5 years. He's 34. Still not fast, but it's a fundamentally different trajectory. And what happens after that first $100,000? This is the part that actually changes the math forever, because that $100,000 sitting in a reasonably invested account at 7% generates $7,000 a year on its own. $583 a month, more than his current monthly savings rate, without him doing a single additional thing. And that number grows every year, not because he's working harder, but because the money itself is now doing work. The second $100,000 takes almost half the time of the first. The third takes less than that. This is what people mean when they talk about compounding. But I want to be honest with you. The reason most people never feel compounding is because they never get to the base that makes compounding meaningful. Compounding on $3,000 is interesting on a spreadsheet. Compounding on $100,000 changes your actual life. So the question isn't really, how do I save faster? The question is, what is actually preventing most people from building that first base? And the answer is structural, not personal. I want to take a moment here to say something that doesn't get said enough in personal finance content. The reason the first $100,000 is hard is not primarily because people lack discipline. It is, in large part, because the financial structure that most middle-class and working people live inside is specifically designed to extract money from them before they ever get a chance to save it. Let me show you what I mean. The tax system taxes your income before you receive it. The most regressive part of this, Social Security tax, is a flat rate, meaning a person earning $40,000 pays the same percentage as a person earning $140,000. There's no progressive relief for low earners on this specific line item. Student loans have become a structurally embedded drain. The average American student borrower carries around $37,000 in debt. At a 6% interest rate on a standard repayment plan, you're paying back roughly $411 a month for 10 years. Total repayment, nearly $50,000. You borrowed $37,000 and you pay back $50,000. That difference, $13,000, is money that could have been the foundation of your first $100,000. Instead, it went to interest. Housing in major economic centers where the better-paying jobs are has outpaced wage growth for nearly 3 decades. In 1990, the median U.S. home price was roughly 3.5 times the median household income. Today, it's closer to 6 to 7 times. European cities like London, Amsterdam, Munich, and Paris show similar or worse ratios. This means the option of just buy instead of rent, the classic advice, requires a down payment that takes longer to save than it did for the previous generation, in a market where prices keep rising while you're trying to save. And the credit system is fascinating in a somewhat dark way. Credit card companies are not in the business of helping you buy things. They're in the business of renting you money at 20 to 29% annual interest in exchange for convenience and a vague promise of rewards. The average American carries around $6,500 in credit card debt. At 24% interest, that's $1,560 a year in interest alone, every year, just to stay where you are. None of this is a conspiracy. It's just how these systems were built and who they were built to benefit. Pointing it out isn't pessimism, it's just honesty. And you can't solve a problem you haven't clearly seen. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Because financially intelligent people don't fight these systems through willpower. They understand them, and they move differently inside them. Let me introduce you to someone else. Same age as Marcus, same kind of income, different city. Let's say she's in Manchester, England. Her name is Sophie. She's 25. She earns the equivalent of about $46,000 a year after her national insurance contributions and income tax, which lands her around $2,900 a month take-home. On paper, Sophie makes less than Marcus, but Sophie will hit her first $100,000 faster. Not because she's more disciplined, because she thinks about money differently, and the difference is subtle. Sophie doesn't think about what she can afford to spend. She thinks about what she can afford to not invest. It's a small shift, but it changes everything. When Sophie gets paid, the first transaction she makes, automatic, not manual, is a transfer of $400 into a low-cost index fund. Not into a savings account earning 0.5%, into an investment account. She set up the automatic transfer on her first day of employment, and she has never touched it. She doesn't experience this as saving. She experiences her monthly budget as $2,500 because the $400 never appears available to her. It's gone before she thinks about groceries or rent. This is called paying yourself first. It's not a new idea, but the critical detail is the automation. Sophie doesn't decide each month whether to save. The decision was made once, it just executes. The second thing Sophie does differently is that she doesn't try to optimize everything. She picks 2 or 3 spending areas that genuinely matter to her, good food and occasional travel, and she deliberately underspends everywhere else without drama or guilt.
She has a cheap phone plan. She doesn't have a car. She uses public transit and cycles. She doesn't feel like she's suffering. She just made a clear, conscious choice about what her money is for. This is different from budgeting in the traditional sense. Traditional budgeting is defensive. It tries to stop you from spending on things you want. Sophie's approach is offensive. She decided what she actually values, and she let the rest go without resentment. The third thing is how Sophie thinks about debt. She has a small student loan, the UK version, income contingent, which behaves somewhat differently, but she also has $2,200 remaining on a personal loan she took for her first computer and some furniture when she moved in. Interest rate 11%. She calculated that paying off that loan costs her $242 a year in interest. That's a guaranteed 11% return on any money she puts toward it, because every pound she pays off early is a pound that doesn't accumulate 11% interest. No stock market investment offers a guaranteed 11% return. So she paid it off aggressively first, before increasing her investment amount. This is the kind of mental arithmetic that most people never do, not because it's complicated, but because nobody ever showed them how to frame the question. And Marcus? By month 18, he's actually made a small adjustment too. Nothing dramatic. He refinanced his student loans and brought the rate down from 6.2% to 4.9%. He set up a $200 automatic investment. He canceled 2 subscription services he hadn't used in 4 months. He didn't feel deprived. He just quietly changed the direction of a few cash flows. His monthly savings rate went from $190 to just under $600. Same job, same city, same salary, different framework.
There's something I want to spend a few minutes on, because I think it's the real reason this topic matters beyond the math. Building the first $100,000 is hard in a financial sense, yes, but it's also hard in a psychological sense, and the psychological difficulty is rarely talked about honestly. When you're saving $300 or $400 a month and you're looking at a goal of $100,000, there is a very long period where the number in your account feels almost insulting. $4,200 after a year of genuine discipline? $8,600 after 2 years? These numbers don't feel like safety. They don't feel like freedom. They feel like almost nothing compared to the scale of what you're trying to build. This phase, let's call it the invisible progress phase, is where most people quit. Not because they don't understand the math, but because the psychological reward of saving is so delayed, so abstract, and so invisible in daily life that it's almost impossible to feel motivated by it. And this interacts badly with something our brains do naturally, which is to respond much more strongly to immediate, visible social rewards than to distant, abstract future ones. A new jacket is visible. Your colleagues notice it. You feel good in it today. The $180 you didn't spend on the jacket and put into an index fund instead, it's invisible. Nobody compliments your index fund contribution. You don't feel $180 richer. You feel the same as you did yesterday, only slightly more virtuous, which is frankly not that satisfying. The financially intelligent people I've observed, not the extremely wealthy, just the quietly competent ones, have found ways to make progress feel visible even when the numbers are small. Some of them track net worth monthly, not to obsess over it, but to make the invisible visible. Watching a graph move upward by $600 in a month, even if $600 feels small in the context of $100,000, creates a feedback signal that the brain can actually process. Others have mentally reframed what the money is. They don't think of their savings account as a pile of numbers. They think of it as compressed time. Every $10,000 in that account represents a number of months of your life that you no longer have to trade for money if you choose not to. That framing makes saving feel more concrete, more human, more real. And some of them, the most grounded ones, have simply made peace with the slowness. They understand that the first $100,000 is the hardest, not because the math is cruel, but because it's the phase where compounding hasn't started doing meaningful work yet. You are the engine. You are funding the machine. The machine isn't moving on its own yet. But it will. And the quiet, private knowledge that the machine is being built, that something is happening even when nothing is visible, becomes its own kind of psychological anchor. Not motivation, not excitement, just a calm, grounded certainty. That's the thing worth building toward. So let's come back to where we started. The first 100,000 is the hardest. Now you know why. It's not hard because you're doing something wrong. It's hard because the structure of early adult financial life in the United States and Europe creates a very narrow corridor between income and expenses, and that corridor doesn't leave much room. The taxes, the loans, the housing costs, the social pressures, these are all real, and they compound against you before you even open a savings account. It's hard because the psychological reward system of saving is broken in the early stages. You're asked to sacrifice real, present, visible pleasure for abstract, future, invisible security. And it's hard because no one ever sits you down and shows you the actual math. Not the inspirational version, not the hustle culture version, just the honest, unglamorous arithmetic of what it takes and how long it actually takes. Marcus is still in Chicago. He's 26 now. He has $11,400 invested. His student loan balance is down to $28,000. He got a small raise, $4,200 more per year, and he put the entire net increase directly into his investment account rather than upgrading his life. He's not suffering. His life looks the same from the outside, but the internal math changed. Sophie is 26 too. She has $14,200 invested. Her loan is gone. She just increased her automatic investment to $550 a month. Neither of them is wealthy, neither of them will be in 10 years by any headline-making standard, but both of them, quietly and without drama, have changed the trajectory of their financial lives in a way that will matter enormously when they're 35, when they're 40, when they're 50. The first 100,000 is a threshold, not a destination. It's the point where the math stops working entirely against you and starts, just barely, just slightly, working for you. That's worth understanding. That's worth working toward. Not with urgency, not with guilt, just with clarity. And if this video gave you even a little more of that clarity, well, that's what it was made for. If you found it useful, consider subscribing. No notifications begging, no dramatic plea. Just, if you want more of this kind of thinking, stick around. We'll see you in the next one.